Research design is the other section in writing a proposal, uh, and this is basically dealing with the method of your research. What kind of method you're applying in order to do or carry out your research. Uh, After talking about the introduction and literature review, we get to the fifth ingredient in writing a proposal, which is called research design. Now that you have clearly explained both your intended research topic in the introduction, right, and the existing research it will draw on in the literature review section, it's time to get practical and explain exactly how you will be carrying out your own research. So we said that in the introduction, we explained our intended research topic, what we are going to do, what is our purpose, what would be our research questions, what would be our research hypothesis, and the limitations of the study and definition of the key terms and statement of the problem. And in the literature review, um, we talked about the existing research that we will draw on. It's time to get practical and explain exactly. Get practical means this is the practical part of your research, because you're going to actually carrying it out. Of course, you will not do it in your proposal, but you will say that this is the practical part and how the researcher is going to carry out the study, right? I mean, this is the section that shows the practicality or the, actual doing of the study in terms of collecting data and analyzing it and coming to the final conclusion. So here we explain exactly how we will be carrying out our research. In other words, your research, that would be your research design. In this section, you will need to answer two critical questions. We have to answer these two critical questions in the research design of our proposal. One, how will you design your research? What research methodology will you adopt? What will your sample be? How will you collect data, right? You know that in the third section of your proposal, which is called methodology or research methodology, first you have to talk about the design of your study, and then you should say what would be your sample. How would you collect the information, or better say data for your analysis? The sample means the subjects or the people or the students or teachers or the persons, on whom you're going to work and collect the data. So how will you collect the data, and the procedure? How will you collect the data which is called actually the procedure of your study, or sometimes it is called the procedure of data collection. And after that, we explain the procedure of data analysis. So apart from these two main sections, I mean, talking about the subjects and the procedures, there is another section which is the instrumentation of your research. How you're going to collect data, or through which kind of instruments, right? You're going to collect the data. Why have you chosen this design? That is, why does this approach suit your specific research aims, objectives, and questions? Um, as I've already said, all sections or details of each proposal are closely related to each other. I mean, proposal is like a chain. All the chain, all the different parts of the chain are linked together. The links are linked together, right? In proposal also, all sections are linked together. Therefore, the title should be linked to the purpose of the study, to the research questions, to the background of the study, literature review, and the literature review should be exactly related to the methodology of the study or research and how you're going to design it. They should be related to the aims of the study, and they should be all related to the research questions. In other words, this is not just about explaining what you will be doing, it's also about explaining why you're going to do that. In fact, the justification is the most important part, because that justification is how you demonstrate a good understanding of research design, which is what assessors want to see. So you have to justify that this is an important study, and why you're going to do that, why it is important to do this, and why you're going to carry out this research in this way, with this kind of categories, with these kinds of subjects, and with this kind of procedure. And some essential design choices you need to cover in your research proposal include this: your intended research philosophy. For example, is it empiricism? Is it based on interpretation, or interpretivism, or etc.? What methodological approach will you be taking? Is it so you have to specify the philosophy of your study, talk about those theoretical issues or the scholars which have stated, or which have laid the foundation for that kind of ideology. And you have to, apart from that, you have to specify the methodological approach. For example, is it a qualitative study or a quantitative one, or a mixed one? For example, if you are going to collect the data in a form of correlational study, that would be quantitative one, because in quantitative research you're dealing with numbers and statistics. Or for example, if it is an experimental design, it is also quantitative, because you have got control group and experimental group, and again you deal with some numbers and statistics. You give some tests as pre-test and then post-test, so you come up with some numbers. Therefore, it is quantitative. Or it may be qualitative, in which you do not exactly deal with the numbers and the statistics. You just use some kind of approaches in qualitative design, like descriptive study, descriptive analysis, like for example, you use observation, you use interview for collecting the data, you do some kinds of longitudinal study in terms of for data analysis, or different forms of qualitative ones that you have already studied. Or you may use both these two methods, qualitative one together with quantitative one, and we call it a mixed method design. Sometimes you do both. You have got an interview, you observe the classes, and at the same time you give them some tests and find the correlation or the effect. It is called mixed method design. The details of your sample. Here in the research design or methodology of the proposal, you have to talk about the details of your sample. And the details of sample includes sample size, how many students, for example. In this study, I'm going to, or about 100 students are going to take part in this study, or 30 or 60 teachers are going to take part. Who they are, you have to say, or you have to write actually who they are, what kind of language proficiency do they have, what kind of language background do they have, where do they come from, what knowledge do they have, how old are they, what is their gender, are they male, female, who they represent, are they representing a whole community, for example, or no, a small sample of people in a particular school or university. Also, in the research design, you have to talk about what data you plan to collect, data about what, in what form. You should say that what would be your data, and are you going to gather the data about, for example, the learner's psychological issues, socio-linguistic aspects, cognitive aspects, and in what form the data would be collected, through questionnaires, through tests, how you plan to collect it, surveys, interviews, focus groups, etc. Right? You have to say, I said that in qualitative design, for example, you use interviews, right? And you have to say how you collect the data in your research, how you plan to analyze it. That is a section which is called the procedure of data analysis. You have to explain it in details in the third chapter of your proposal, and you should say what kind of data analysis would you use. Are you going to use a particular software, for example, an analysis software like SPSS, or no? If it is a qualitative one, for example, are you going to use the MaxQDA procedure or no? So you have to exactly determine what kind of analysis you're going to do. And also in the research design, you have to talk about the ethical adherence. For example, does this research satisfy all ethical requirements of your institution, or does it need further approval? So also you have to say that all the ethical requirements of the institutions have been met or not, or have the researcher has the researcher considered the ethical issues in collecting the data, considering the participants, for example, psychological, emotional issues or not, or are they their data or information would be kept confidential or not. So these are the ethical issues that should be explained in the research design. This list is not exhaustive. You can add some other sections to that. These are just some core attributes of research design. Check with your institution what level of detail they expect. In your institution, which is called the Imam Reza International University, we are actually dealing with the same issues. In the third chapter of your proposal, we need or basically we need the same thing. As I told you, in the third chapter, we have got some subheadings. The main heading is methodology, and the subheadings would be the research design. The other subheading would be the participants. The other subheadings would be instrumentation or instruments. The other subheading would be procedure, and procedure can be divided into procedure of data collection and procedure of data analysis, and the like. The research onion by Sanders et al. 2009 provides a good summary of the various design choices you ultimately need to make. You can read more about that here. All right, so this is a technical term produced by or introduced by Sanders, saying that this is called research onion because it's like an onion which has got different layers. So it depends on the institution or university in which you're working. Don't forget the practicalities. Here we are going to talk about the practical aspects of your research. In addition to the technical aspects, you will need to address the practical side of the project. In other words, you need to explain what resources you'll need. For example, time, money, access to equipment or software, etc., and how you intend to secure these resources. You need to show that your project is feasible. So any make or break type resources need to already be secured, right? You should know what would interrupt you, what would hinder you, for example